Hello everyone, welcome back to Fastcuts. Today we are going to recap an American psychological horror film titled Silence, written and directed by Parker Finn in his feature directorial debut. Based on his 2020 short film Laura Hasn't Slept, it stars Sosie Bacon as a therapist named Rose Cotter, who, after witnessing the bizarre suicide of a patient, goes through increasingly disturbing and daunting experiences, leading her to believe what she is experiencing is supernatural. So without any further ado, let's get back to the story. The story begins with a woman lying dead in bed. A 10-year-old girl named Rose is standing outside the door of her room in a daze. All this was a woman's dream of her childhood. The dead woman in her dream was her mother. After many years, Rose is a doctor in a hospital. One day, she gets a call from the hospital, so she goes to visit a patient named Carl having mental issues. When Rose sees Carl alone saying something crazy and she calms him down with her sweet words, then she walks over to the nurse sitting at the hospital counter. Then the nurse says that the senior doctor called her, and she went to see him. He asks her about the current condition of Carl. They both were the doctors who treated patients having mental illness. In the next scene, a nurse tells Rose about a new patient, and she went to the room where the patient is admitted. The patient was a girl named Laura. According to the medical report Rose received, Laura had some mental problems. Laura tells her problems that haunts her. Rose didn't quite understand nor could not believe anything she said. Suddenly Laura is shocked to see something behind Rose, so she slips off from the chair and crawls back, crying. Rose looks around the room to see what Laura is afraid of, but didn't see anything there. Rose is horrified to see Laura's condition. She immediately picks up the phone and calls security for an emergency. Then she looks around but couldn't see Laura. Laura was standing on the other side smiling. In Laura's hand, there was also a sharp shard of glass. Suddenly, Laura slits her own throat with a shard of glass. But even then, the smile on her face did not fade. Rose is scared to see Laura's action. In the next scene, the police come to the hospital to interrogate about Laura's death. So two policemen came near Rose and asked her about the things that happened. After all the interrogations, Rose is on her way home. The death of Laura is still hunting her. That night, Rose took a beer from the fridge and drank. She sees Laura smiling in the cover of the darkness. Rose looks at her with fear. Suddenly someone arrived there and called for roses. Suddenly, the glass in her hand falls to the ground. As soon as she looked around she couldn't see Laura. The man who called her was a truer. They stay in the house together. Ross sees him and hugs him. Today a patient died in front of my eyes. Then they go out for dinner with Rose's sister Holly and her husband. They talked about many things, but Rose paid no attention to what they said. Laura's death was indelible from her mind. Holly invites Rose to her son's birthday party, but Rose refuses, but later accepts it. In the next scene, Rose is seen feeding his cat at bedtime. The next day, Rose asks the nurse at the hospital counter if she can show the police report of Laura's death. The nurse said that she would mail it. Then there comes one of the policemen who questioned Ross yesterday. His name is Joel. Joel had a crush on her ever since he saw her. Then the nurse at the counter tells Joel that her engagement is over. Then Joel realizes that he can't have Rose as his girlfriend. Later, Rose reads Laura's police report that the nurse mailed her from the office. Their report says suicide. Immediately she gets a call from Holly. Rose picks up the phone and walks over to talk to Carl, so she moves the curtain of the window. Then Laura is seen standing in the courtyard of the hospital looking at her too, and gets scared seeing that. So she walks through the hospital's corridor. So she reaches Carl's room. Then she sees him smiling. Rose is surprised to see that. He was silently smiling and tells Rose, "You're going to die." She gets scared and calls security. So the security guards rush in and arrests him. But when Rose looked into the room, Cole was lying there doing nothing. Carl smiled and what happened next was Rose's feeling. So the news reached the boss, and he asks Ross to brief about what happened. The senior doctor tells her to take a few days off. On the way to her home, Rose sees a toy shop and buys a present for Holly's son. At night, Rose is wrapping the gift she bought, and she sees Trevor's message saying that he will be late. Then she went to the kitchen and takes a beer. Suddenly the home security alarm goes off. Rose is shocked to hear that, and so the glass in her hand falls down. She realizes that someone has entered the house. She immediately grabs a knife and goes to the door. No one is seen there, and she immediately turns off the alarm. Then she hears the phone ringing. She goes and takes it. It was the call from the first line security, and asks her whether the security alarm is shut down by herself. Then the officer's voice becomes someone else's voice. Then Rose feels someone standing behind her. She slowly turns back in fear. Suddenly the house phone rings. Hearing that, She looks at her hand in surprise. The phone she was holding was no longer in her hand. There is no one behind her either. Everything seems like an illusion to her. Suddenly she goes and picks up the phone. The first line security that called her earlier is now calling. Everything feels strange to her. Later 2 policemen come to her house. They search the whole house. Then the cops leave telling Rose, "We've checked around the house. Everything's clear. There's nothing wrong here. Call us if you need anything." By then, Trevor reaches there. Rose is seen calling the cat for food. Trevor then asks her why the cops came to the house. "I don't know what happened. Suddenly the house alarm went off. That's why I called the police," she says. "Is that so? And you're okay?" he asks. "No. I'm not in a good mood right now, so I've taken a few days off. And don't forget to feed our cat when he comes." Rose goes away. So Rose is going to bed for the night. She sees food still in the cat's bowl. The cat hasn't come to eat yet. She is looking for the cat everywhere with the food plate in her hand. Later she realizes that it is missing. In the next scene, she wakes up to find Rose's mother dead, and she was not sleepy. So she turns on the system and listens to everything Laura told her before she died. She had a record of their conversation with her. That's what she hears. While listening to that, Rose hears someone other than the 2 of them talking on the record. She wonders what it is. Then someone called her Rose from that. She is surprised to hear that. Then Laura's ghost stands next to her. Rose sees it and falls to the ground in fear. She screams, but then Laura was not seen there, so she gets scared and grabs a knife. Trevor hears her screaming and comes running. He gets scared seeing the knife in her hand, so Trevor calms her down by saying, "Rose, put the knife down. Don't be scared. There's no one here but me. Just shut up." Rose went to see a psychiatrist the very next day. Rose tells her everything that is happening. "Ma'am, I can't get Laura's death out of my head," she says. "This is happening to you because you are always thinking about her. Instead of sitting like this, interact with people for a while. Also, go on a trip to change this mood." The psychiatrist tells her about the idea to change her feelings. In the next scene, Rose went to Holly's son's birthday party. Holly is happy to see her. Holly thought that Rose would not come. Like Rose, many other people had come there for the birthday party. So Holly's son cuts the cake. When the cake is cut, all the people with present sings. So after the cake is finished, Jackson, our birthday boy, opens up and looks at all the presents he got. Everyone was standing around him, so he opens the gift that Rose brought him. There was a dead cat in it. It's Rose's missing pet cat. Everyone is shocked to see it. Seeing it, Rose cries and picks it up. Then Holly gets angry at her for bringing a dead cat as a gift. Rose is sad and crying. "No, I don't know how it got in the gift. It wasn't my doing," says Rose. In fact, nowhere in the story does it show how the cat got into the box. However, it is possible that Rose did it unconsciously. Everyone is staring at her. No one believes her. So Rose sees a smiling Laura in the crowd. Then Rose scolds her, but Laura went missing somewhere. Then everyone there thinks that Rose has some mental problem. Rose is admitted to the hospital with a hand wound. Immediately her boss comes to her. "You're fine," he says. Then outside the room, Rose sees Holly saying something to Trevor and getting angry. Anyway, Rose realizes that everything Holly tells him is about her. She was talking about all the things Rose did at Holly's house. Trevor then drives home with Ross. When he gets home, Trevor is about to get out of the car. Then Rose stops him. "Trevor, I have a few things to talk about," she says. Trevor gets ready to hear it. "Trevor, I'm not crazy, but something is haunting me. Sometimes you don't have to believe it," she says. "Then let's go inside and talk," he says. "No, I want to tell you this right now. I see something like an evil spirit, but it's not a ghost. It's something else. A girl who was my patient also saw all this. Now, I see everything she saw. I felt I had to tell you. That's why I'm telling you. You have to believe it," she says. "I can't believe this," Trevor says as he gets out of the car. Then Rose goes after him. "Why don't you believe me?" she asks. "Because you said you see something sometimes. If that's your only problem, then why did you kill the cat and give him the gift? That has nothing to do with what you said. That's why I don't believe you." Trevor goes inside the house. No one understands what she is saying. She stands helpless. It was late at night and Rose had not slept. Laura had witnessed a suicide 5 days before she died. Ross checks Laura's police report whose suicide it is. Then she searches for his name on the net. So she finds out where his house is. Immediately she hears a sound from outside the door of the room. Incidentally, it's the sound of Laura coming. Rose didn't go to see what it was. She is seen scared and praying. Didn't Laura say she saw someone commit suicide? In the morning, Rose goes to his house. She asks his wife how he died. His life was very happy. But 4 days before his death, something started to change in his life. That's why he committed suicide, says his wife. He then shows his wife Rose to his room. This is where he spent the days before he died, says his wife. Ross sees some drawings there. All of them had smiling figures. It was all painted before he died. Ross then asks if anyone saw him commit suicide before he died. Yes. A neighbor of ours committed suicide recently. He witnessed it. Oh, why are you asking all this? Asks the wife. I have personally witnessed a suicide like him, so now I'm having the same situation as him, says Rose. Hearing that, his wife behaves rudely to her. Do you have the same experience? If so, you are going to die too. Get out of here, and the wife kicks her out of the house. In the next scene, Rose has no idea what to do next, so she goes to Joel's house. She has faith that he will help her. As for Joel, he is very happy that Rose has come to his house, because he had a bit of a crush on her. Joel, now I have the conditions that Laura had before she died, so I might as well kill myself as she did, says Rose. Joel overhears this and makes fun of her. Rose, what are you talking about? He asks. Joel, you have to believe me. That's all I can say. Also, Laura saw someone commit suicide before she died, and he saw someone commit suicide before he died. Can you figure out who it is? Ross asks. So Joel takes the laptop and looks up the police report to see who it is. It was a woman who lived next door to him, says Joel. Then Ross asks, did anyone else see the woman commit suicide before she died? Yes. A man was seen committing suicide 4 days before that woman died. He then shows Rose a camera recording video. It was a video at a fuel station. There is a woman who says they are dead, and she pours petrol on the car. Immediately someone comes there. He takes a weapon that was there and stands in front of the woman. Then he commits suicide by stabbing himself in the neck with the weapon in his hand. Rosa tells him to replay the video. So when he plays the video, they see the man who committed suicide smiling in the video. Why is he laughing? Joel wonders. Joel had no idea what was going on there, or Rose didn't even tell him what it was. So Rose leaves, saying, I'm going to need your help. I'm leaving now. So she drives straight home. At the time, Trevor had a psychiatrist at home. Ross asks Trevor, what are they doing here when he sees the psychiatrist? We were talking about you. Trevor says, why are you talking about me? Anyone who doesn't believe what I say shouldn't be talking about me, says Rose angrily. Then Rose, Trevor told me you see ghosts. We were talking about that, says the psychiatrist. After leaving there, Rose went straight to her sister's house. When she knocks on the door, Holly's husband opened. Rose asks, where's my sister? I need to talk to her. Holly's husband replies, no, don't talk to her now. Get out of here. The husband felt that Rose had pissed them off by giving him the cat in front of a lot of people at their son's birthday party. That's why he talks to her so seriously. Holly hadn't let Rose into the house. They both talk from outside the house. Rose tells Holly everything that happened to her, but like everyone else, Holly didn't believe her. Then Holly, who had gone into the house, comes back out of the house. She goes to Rose's car and knocks on the glass. Rose looks at her and sees Holly's head hanging. Rose is horrified to see it. She can be seen screaming in the car. This was also a feeling of hers. Rose doesn't feel like going home. So while sitting in the car eating, Joel calls her and says, I have investigated this case in detail. It is like a chain. One commits suicide, then someone else sees it, and so he commits suicide. It continues like this. So far 20 suicides have occurred. 19 of them died. One person escaped from it, says Joel. When she heard that, 19 people died. So who was saved? I want to see him right away, says Rose. So that night, Rose and Joel go to see the person who escaped from death. Is there anything you want to ask me? Rose asks Joel on the way. No, I understand what's going on here now, but you think you're going to die like them. That's why you're so scared. Nothing like that will happen. It's all just your feelings, says Joel. Then people who have witnessed suicide die on the 4th or 5th day. Only one person has survived this chain of suicide. I don't think it's all just feelings, says Rose. So Rose, isn't today your 4th day? Joel asks. That means it's been 4 days since Laura died. Usually, when this time comes, everyone commits suicide. Now it is Rose who commits suicide. So they went to a prison some distance away where the guy who survived from suicide is now there. He is in jail for a murder case. His name is Cotter. So Ross and Joel go to the visiting room to see Cotter. Rose is in front of him. Joel is standing right next to her. Then he asks, what is the matter of calling me? Then Rose starts saying that someone else has the problem she has. That is, Rose does not say that she has such a problem. but says that someone else has such a problem. Cotter, I'm a doctor. I recently had a patient. She witnessed a suicide a few days ago. Now she's having some problems. When we looked into it, we found out that you had the same problem. That's why we came, says Rose. What can I do about it? Why did you come to me? He asks. Then you have to help her. It's a chain of death. You escaped it. How did you escape that death? That said, but we can save her. Please, Rose begs him. I'll tell you how I escaped. But the police shouldn't hear it. Don't tell him to get out, he says to Joel. But Joel was not ready to leave. Rose then tells Joel to please and get out. Then Joel goes out because Rose says. Then Cotter tells how he escaped from this chain of death. I was researching this. It's a chain of death. My wife saw someone commit suicide, so I became a part of this chain from her. I always see different forms. Then my mind started to lose its rhythm. One day I got angry and killed someone. The dead man got the chain of death, and an eyewitness to the murder was part of it. That's how I'm in this prison after murder. If you want your patient to escape, don't tell someone to kill her. If not, she's going to die for sure. Don't go and tell her to kill her, says Cotter. Upon hearing this, Rose accidentally says, I can't kill anyone. She said that her patient had this condition so far. She said that she had this disease without knowing it. Cotter became angry hearing that. Then you have the death chain. Why did you lie to me? Get out of here. Did you come here to give it to me again? Get out of here. He kept shouting. Hearing his commotion, the police come and take him away. Later, Ross and Joel are released from prison. Joel then asks what happened inside. Rose says nothing and gets in the car. Cotter said that if someone is killed, this chain will go to another person. If he told Joel that, he would think Rose would kill someone. So Joel was not told what Cotter said. After Rose gets home, she places the files and papers on the dining table. And then she looks at what other ways she can get out of it. She usually bites her nails when she gets stressed. It was her habit. So when she bites her nails, a nail breaks. It causes bleeding. She washes off the blood. Then she sees some knives in a small basket nearby. This knife itself was more than enough for her to kill someone. Suddenly someone rings the doorbell. She goes to see who it is. The psychiatrist enters her house. Rose had no interest in talking to the psychiatrist because the psychiatrist didn't believe what she said. Rose then says, I'm fine now. Immediately Rose gets a phone call. When she picked up the phone and spoke, she realized that the psychiatrist was calling her. She is surprised to know that. So who is this psychiatrist in front of her? The psychiatrist immediately ahead smiles. It was a smiling evil spirit. Rose is scared to see it. She runs back, but the spirit goes after her and tries to kill her. Suddenly she wakes up in a car. The whole incident of this psychic coming home was a feeling in her mind. She is now in the parking lot of her hospital. She also has a knife with her. She hides it inside her shirt. Then she goes inside the hospital. She walks with her face down, so that no one who knows her can see her. So she goes to Carl's room. Her plan is to kill him and get this chain off her. Carl is scared to see her. Then Rose walks over to him, saying, don't make any noise. Boss comes there hearing his voice. He sees Rose. Rose, what are you doing? Rose then pulls out a knife hidden in her shirt. He then stabs Carl in the stomach. Also, the knife is drawn and stabbed again and again. That smile was as if the chain of death had entered him. The boss gets scared seeing all that. He rips his face off. Suddenly the scene changes and Rose is still in the car. It was also a dream she saw. Immediately the boss comes and knocks on the car window. Rose, what are you doing here? He asks. Nothing. It just came, says Rose. So the car starts and prepares to go. Then the boss sees a knife in her car. Seeing that, the boss says, let's talk. Boss realizes that she is going to kill someone or commit suicide, but she takes the car and leaves. So she keeps going to a forest-like area. She realizes that she cannot kill anyone. So her plan is to commit suicide by going to a hidden place to break this chain of death. If no one saw her commit suicide, then suicides like this would not happen. So she's going to put an end to this. Joel immediately calls her phone. Where are you now? He asks. I'm going somewhere, she says. Joel asks. Your boss called the police station. He said you were going to kill someone with a knife. Is that true? Joel asks. That's not true. I'm going to end this chain of death. Don't call me again. She hangs up, so she stops in front of a dilapidated house. It is her ancestral home. She grew up in the house as a child. In the next scene, she goes inside the house. So she reaches a room. Then she remembers her childhood. When her mother was sick, her mother tells her to call an ambulance. But the 10-year-old Rose stood there doing nothing. Then the mother became angry with her. So she runs out of that room fearing her mother. Our big Rose is going into that room now. Mother's bed is now empty. She then locks all the windows and doors to prevent any soul soul from entering the house, and then waits for the soul. Immediately, a sound is heard from the next room. She goes to see what it is. She also had a lantern in her hand. She feels a little scared. However, she goes there, wondering what she has to lose as she waits for death. Then she sees a woman sitting there. It was her mother. In other words, the soul of the mother. Mom cries and says, "Molly, I didn't raise you in Hollywell. You have to forgive me." Then Rose gets sad. Along with that, the mother also asks, "Why didn't you call an ambulance when I was about to die?" Then Rose cries, "I was a child. I was afraid of you. You never once spoke to me happily. So I didn't know what to do when you were dying." So she leaves the room. Then the mother follows her. "By the time I left the room, my mother's appearance had changed. She has become a monster." She smiles and goes to kill Rose. In fact, it was the smiling death that made her commit suicide. Rose is afraid, so the monstrous figure tries to kill her. Then Rose hits it on the head with the lantern in her hand, and so its fire spreads over the demon. Because of that demonic form ignites, and so it perishes. Then she leaves the house. Then he looks at the house from the yard. Then she sees the house on fire, and so Rose escapes that death. After it's all over, she goes to Joel's house to tell him what happened. Joel asks, "Where have you been?" as soon as he sees her. "I'm going to end that laugh. It's gone. There's no more. And there's no more suicide," Rose says. And Rose asks, "Joel, let people say whatever they want about me, but you have to believe me. Won't you be with me?" Then Joel says in another voice, "I will always be with you." Rose looks at him in surprise. She looks up and sees him smiling. Rose then realizes that this is death in the form of Joel. The killing is not over yet. She gets scared and leaves his house. Then the whole yard was filled with grass and plants. She looks surprised. When she turned around, she saw her ancestral home. She still hasn't left. Then everything Joel saw earlier was an illusion. Thinking about it all makes her head gone crazy. She feels very scared. Immediately Joel comes there in a car. She thinks he is an evil spirit, so she is scared. But in fact, it was the original Joel. He came to save her, but she didn't understand it. She is afraid of him and runs into the house. Then the door is locked. Then there was that demonic spirit. Ross doesn't know where to run anymore. She stands helpless in fear of the monster, and so it catches up with her. Then she screams loudly. Hearing her voice, Joel kicks down the door of the house from outside, so he goes inside the house. Then he sees Rose there. She is pouring kerosene on her body. She also has that killer smile on her face that is seen in all dying people. So she laughs and sets herself on fire and dies. Joel sees her death. Now the chain of that smile reached Joel. This chain continues like this. The story ends here, letting us know that it will never end. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.